I'm Bernadette Grosjean. I'm a psychiatrist in Los Angeles, and I work with a big nonprofit here with homeless medical patients and refugees, and then I have a very many small private practice. Used to work at Harbor UC.
Excellent.
I thank you for speaking to us today. Nice to meet you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm Willie Yee. I'm a retired psychiatrist and a Red Cross volunteer.
Where are you based, Willie?
New Paltz, New York, Mid-Hudson Valley.
Excellent. You have a beautiful background. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I'm also a magician, so I've been doing, since the COVID thing, I've been doing most of my performances online.
Wonderful.
And one of my acts is, it's a Star Trek oriented act, so it's science fiction stuff, and I have the ears and the whole thing. And
I came in a little nervous because I'm going to talk about a lot of, I would say, mind, subconscious, how we use that to help cardiac patients, how we motivate our cardiology fellows and faculty towards coping with the burnout, improve their resilience, things like that. That's what I'm going to discuss today. But then talking to psychiatrists feels like I'm putting myself too much out of my comfort zone. And then now that I'm talking to a psychiatrist who's also a magician, I really have to think twice before I put up my slides today. So nice that Willie is here with us.
Hi, Anand.
How are you, Vanati?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Glad you joined.
I'm really, hi, I'm Dr. Vanati. I'm a dermatologist from Chennai. I'm really excited to join this meeting with Anand and with you all.
She is my wife's best friend. So she's a dermatologist, but she's interested in holistic health. So I invited her to participate today. We have a few more people. It looks like
all right.
20 people.
Usually the participant counts goes all the way to 30. So, and Mona is texting me saying she's trying to join, but I don't see her in the waiting room.
Okay.
Let's see.
It says there are 19 participants, but I'm seeing only 4 or 5 faces here. I guess they're not showing up on this Zoom screen.
All right. Let me join from another screen.
There may be 2 screens because on mine there are 7 participants. So I'm not sure if we're all in the same room.
You know what? You might have given me that thing. So now people have come in because I admitted people in. Can we be co-host, you think, Smita? Because you could keep admitting people as they come in over the next 15 minutes.
Hi, Anand. It's Mona.
How are you, Mona?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you. And thank you so much for doing this for us today. We're very excited.
I'm so glad that you invited me.
Smita, are you here?
I'm here. Anand, can you make me host? And then I'll make you co-host.
Okay.
Or do you want to go the other way around?
Yeah, I'm going to try and make you the host so that you can be in the driver's seat. I just need to share my video.
Yeah, I think you can do that with your, if I make you co-host.
I've made you co-host now. That's what is showing up. Now you should be able to do it. And now it allows me to make you host. Yeah. Now you are the host, Meta.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to join. Right, and leave. Mona, do you want to go ahead and introduce Anand?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
I can
So,
do the formal introduction, but you can do the informal one.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our week's educational seminar. This week we have a wonderful presentation lined up for you by Dr. Anand. And please correct me if I'm wrong in the pronunciation of your name, but Chakalingam, is that correct?
Anand Chokalingam.
Okay, wonderful. And so Dr. Chakalingam is an associate professor of medicine at the University of Missouri, Columbia, since 2006. And I'm going to let Smita do the formal part of his bio. But basically today we are going to be talking about burnout and resilience through self-inquiry, a cardiologist perspective. I was lucky enough to have spoken on the topic of moral injury with Dr. Chakalingam in various other forums. And it was in his lecture I found to be incredibly not only just eye-opening, but very relevant to see how other specialties view stress, mental health, and its intersection in their particular specialty. And Dr. Chakalingam has done a lot of published and just formal and informal talks on this before, and I thought it would be a great way to kind of do a meet and greet between our two specialties as well, and you know, better support our cardiologist colleagues at the physician support line, but also have a view into their world when it comes to this intersection. Also, on a different note, I wanted to kind of share with you all some news I received this morning before we go into this talk. And one of our PSL volunteers, Dr. Camille Paglia, who I happen to know and have worked with as she was an attending when I was a resident. She also then became a colleague of mine in just as a, you know, psychiatrist. And she, you know, then over time we also developed a very nice friendship. And she was a volunteer most recently on the physician support line, and she had passed away this past week. It sounds like from a cardiac event, and unrelated, I believe, thus far to COVID. But she was an incredibly generous and giving and optimistic person, very dedicated to her field. She's also a lawyer by trade. She actually was a corporate lawyer for several years before she went into medicine and became a psychiatrist. And she was just an incredible spirit to know. And you know, I wanted to inform all of you, as she is part of our community, and she was a part of our community. And she also shared that enthusiasm and generosity that of all of you here today in giving support to our physician colleagues through COVID. So I hope that you guys, in whatever way, you know, moves you, remember this generous and giving person, Dr. Camille Paglia, MD, JD. And again, I thank you again for all of your generosity of spirit and expertise and time that you give to our colleagues and each other in these in the seminars and as well as on the physician support line. Thank you from the very, very deep depths of my heart. I will give this the mic, as it were, back to Smita to finish our introduction and begin our seminar today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. And I am prompting myself to start the recording again. Welcome, everybody. Today we have Dr. Anand Chokalingam, who is an associate professor of medicine at the University of Missouri, Columbia since 2006. His major research emphasis is Takotsubo stress cardiomyopathy, mental stress, and holistic interventions, with over 65 original publications. He gives invited lectures on stress cardiomyopathy and heart failure at several international conferences world over. He features regularly on TV, radio, and print media to increase awareness about heart health. He collaborates with exercise nutritional scientists to improve diet, exercise, and lifestyle for cardiac patients. He has pioneered a unique Heartful Living cardiac wellness program both in the US and India for improving health using self-inquiry methods. Over the last 5 years, thousands of heart patients have gained insight and confidence through the 8-week course. He has founded the first of its kind M-Health online program for addressing physician burnout and holistic health, and the entire program is freely available on www.highlifejourney.org for all. Some of Dr. Chokalingam's recent popular show was on Paul Pepper TV interviews, and the link is there on the email that I have sent you. And another link is available of his academic efforts on the email that I have sent you all. Welcome, Dr. Chokalingam. We're very fortunate to have you here, and we're looking forward to how you and your colleagues in cardiology experience stress and manage stress. Thank you.
Once again, thanks so much, Mona and Smita, for giving me this opportunity to connect with the psychiatrist organization and colleagues who are working with physician burnout. This means a lot to me. In the last 5 to 10 years, we've been doing whatever best we can to try and address all these challenges. And in the last few months, as we all recognize, the COVID world has changed everything for everyone. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. You see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Today we are discussing how we can improve physician resilience using self-inquiry. My disclosure is highlifejourney.org, which is our nonprofit that aims at improving resilience for patients, doctors, anyone above the age of 10 years. We are inviting to participate in these simple holistic methods. We started this a few months ago, and we are hoping to reach 10,000 people enrollment over the next year or so. The objectives of today's discussion are to understand burnout at cardiology in our University of Missouri and nationally, and then to understand what 80% of this problem is, which is systemic issues, and how we can overcome it as providers by directly engaging with our patients more effectively. And then the last 20% is still in our hands, understanding a little deeper about ourselves so that we can optimize our outlook to life and engagement with all our efforts. We recognize in the US an estimated 1 physician dies every day from suicide. This rate, about 28 to 40 suicides per 100,000 doctors, ends up being 3 to 4 times more compared to about 12.3 per 100,000 that you see in the general population. So this is staggering. Highly educated, motivated physicians taking their lives more than the general population. At MU, before COVID started, this survey was completed at the end of 2019. This is a pretty busy slide, but what I'm trying to show you here is compared to the national benchmark, which is in gray. Blue is the survey of about 10 to 15 cardiologists, faculty in our group, and they are faring more or less little better than the national average as far as burnout level, job stress is concerned, work atmosphere, and overall things are about or a little better than the national average in our institution. EMR time, medical records that is being spent outside of work was much higher for a few people, but majority of the doctors were able to find a decent balance. If you see this slide shows for cardiology fellows. There, about 9% noted that they were spending more time at home. Whereas if you look at cardiology faculty, about a third of them ended up spending taking work home and working on EMR at home. So if you look at cardiology fellows in our group in 2019, EMR hours outside of work, which predicts increase in burnout, was more in about 9% among fellows. And if you look at cardiology faculty, it ended up being at about 30%. So quite a few hours are being spent at home on a regular weekly basis, more by faculty than by cardiology fellows. And then this question was asked, cardiologists putting off their own health due to time pressures, and half of them said sometimes, and a few of them always they had to take time away from their own self-care towards taking care of their patients and charts. So this is from a national survey looking at the biggest contributors to burnout. And they've broken this up this year based on the age group of the surveyed physicians. Boomers ended up noticing computer time is a big problem, whereas Generation X felt it was lack of respect from administration and leadership, whereas the millennials felt spending too many hours at work was a big deal. But if you look at the number one reason for all the three groups, it ended up being too many bureaucratic tasks, specifically charting and paperwork. So if you asked doctors how they are coping with burnout, boomers' best way was taking time by themselves, whereas Gen X spent more time focused on exercise, and the millennials are spending more time sleeping. If you look at the various specialties, cardiology is, I would say, somewhere in the middle. And this is the survey that I was talking about, the 2020 Medscape survey. And if you're wondering where you are, if you're between 55 and 73, you would be considered a boomer. Gen X, if you're between 40 and 54 now, and a millennial if you are below the age of 39. Cardiologists, about 4% actually had depression, whereas colloquially about 10%, and then about 40% noted having burnout features. And for cardiologists, again, it ends up being the very similar reasons that physicians noticed. And as far as coping among cardiologists, most of them resorted to exercise, listening to music, connecting with people in their lives as the top three ways of coping with burnout. I just pulled some of the more recent papers. Again, these are all before COVID era. And this study says burnout is a significant problem, obviously, and exercise and good nutrition can play a big role. Addressing emotional energy is important for physicians. This paper highlights the importance of ensuring adequate sleep hours. Professional coaching may be an effective strategy to reduce burnout and improve well-being for physicians. And then this study reminds, don't blame physicians, instead address the working conditions which have become so much more challenging. And that is where the fix needs to come from. And this brings us to the key issue where 80% of burnout is a systemic problem. Maybe 20% the doctors can take steps to address it on their own. And That's what we're going to discuss in the next few minutes. We got here because the culture of medicine is changing. Electronic medical records is a bigger and bigger issue for many practitioners. Work environments are more chaotic. We don't have as much control over our schedules and insufficient time taking work home, less capacity or room to make appropriate clinical decisions, and misalignment with our true values. These are some of the biggest challenges doctors face. But this is a snapshot of a systemic problem that our country as a whole faces. If you look at the cost of a simple heartburn medication, Nexium, most of the Western world ends up paying for a month about $40 to $50, whereas in the US, it is 4 times more expensive to get the same medicine. So this is what I believe makes healthcare and its challenges that much more of an issue, because for the patient, they are looking at us as the providers for help. And if we are not able to effectively take care of their health issues, then that directly contributes to us not feeling satisfied and leading gradually to more and more sense of burnout. This is another Newsweek article I came across where 1 million US citizens go to Mexico for health care. 75% of these health care seekers are going for dental or cosmetic care, but 25% end up going for orthopedic issues, bariatrics, and other concerns, because they can have 40 to 70% savings if they cross the border. So healthcare cost is a huge concern here. This is a nice, simple, but very good read on the price we pay, which emphasizes how healthcare has transformed in the last 20 years to much more challenging situation for patients, doctors, and overall healthcare costs. Doctors' greed is addressed here. Doctors doing unnecessary vein procedures, excessive C-sections, even dermatologists staging their procedures, doing unnecessary surgeries on infants, prolonging chemotherapy in futile cases, unnecessary master checkups just to add more diagnosis to healthy people. So all these are issues that doctors are directly or indirectly responsible for. But again, healthcare is not in our hands alone. There is more insurance versus hospital bills that are both escalating to match each other. And 1/3 of hospitals end up still suing patients and garnishing patient wages despite claiming non-profit status. Air ambulances are a big concern. They've skyrocketed in the recent years. And overall, the pricing of any testing, any procedure, any medicine is not transparent. And providers and even patients are now seeking more and more healthcare blue book. Like going for a car, we can try to find out what is fair pricing for what we are getting. And health insurance is becoming more and more of a expensive issue as all these health challenges are being faced. So this is another issue, group purchasing organizations. I'm not going to go into too much details, but these are things that are increasing healthcare costs. Pharmacy benefit managers. Again, these are things that we don't train in medical schools, and we don't even hear about these things. But in the last couple of decades, these have taken a bigger and bigger proportion of healthcare. To give an example of how healthcare has changed compared to 1970, the number of doctors in 2010 has increased maybe 30%, 50%. But if you look at this yellow curve, that is the amount of increase in the last 2 to 3 decades in the administrators and other players in healthcare, that is significantly contributing to overall healthcare costs in this country. So now we have a 3,000, 4,000% increase in the last few decades in non-administration that is participating in healthcare. So what I believe is responsible for the unnecessary excess work that doctors are having to cope with while trying to provide patient care. We recognize after 10 years, 15 years of training after school to become specialists in whichever area that we are practicing, that our autonomy is very important to us. Our competence, which comes from this many years of specialized training, and our ability to connect meaningfully and provide service is what keeps us in our work. But this being said, we are ultimately led on this never-ending rat race, trying to keep up with our schedules and RVU targets and so many other things that we did not get into this profession for. To this, earlier the three aims were patient care, lowering costs, and better outcome. But now, healthcare administration is recognizing that physician wellness is a very integral part. And so now it is called the quadruple aim. My only issue with this is that this does not come around because doctors took a notice of physician burnout. It is because administration is taking notice because of turnover and excess cost for them that they want to retain doctors. So that's how they bring about physician wellness into the main discussion. But we in medical field have to wake up for ourselves and figure out how we can take care of our health just as we take care of our patients. So this is the movement that is for Black Lives Matter that is now ongoing. And this is a picture I found online about a Marine who stood in silent protest in Utah for so long that his shoes burnt in the heat on the pavement. The reason I bring this is at MU, our medical student initiated this Black Lives Matter event and kneeled for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in the summer heat to show how we stand in hand in hand with the movement. But what I want to emphasize also while I share this is doctors need to find that, I would say, sense of community and togetherness so that we are there for each other. Our leadership at MU, where I'm working for the last 15 years, when I emailed them 2 days ago saying I'm presenting this at a national physician support organization, they gave me some of the new steps that our leadership is taking. Due to the COVID issues, alternate housing and daycare are being looked at, quiet reflection spaces, more convenient parking, tiered huddles, ensuring adequate PPE for providers. Leadership is regularly holding town hall meetings so that all the data and information is shared directly and efficiently with all the providers. We've created an ad hoc workforce for well-being, and we are disseminating information about mental health resources that are available to our staff, mindfulness videos, information on addressing these issues with our children and financial planning. All these things are being looked at specifically due to the COVID challenges doctors face. Now, I will take you to Heartful Living. This is our program, which we've formally had now for 5 years. It's been like mostly an 8-week group clinic at our VA, but also university community patients have been invited. It's completely free. I've done this as a service to our community on my own personal time for the last 5 years. But because COVID started, this year we could not do it as 20, 30 people attending in a room together. So this was aimed at not only cardiac patients, but also at their families and any health provider, administration, anybody is welcome to participate. Our residents started attending. And based on this Heartful Living, which is a holistic program, we've extended it to physician wellness. And in the last 3 years, we've done several sessions and a series of workshops for physician wellness here and at the American College of Cardiology, which is our national society for cardiac fellows and faculty to optimize their health. So this is the outline, which in June and July, we conducted it online. And instead of 20 or 30 people attending, we've now been able to open it to 200 people. So that was the number of people who attended both here, Europe, and in India simultaneously. And these are the things we covered. Understanding that most of our health is always going to be in our hands, no matter how much high-tech procedures turn up. And then understanding the role of diet, exercise, meditation, and altruism, which these are the four things that we focus on currently in the COVID world, and then putting all of this together. So this is our program, and essentially it is 30 minutes of presentation, 15 minutes of question answers, and about 15 minutes of self-inquiry. If you look at our life, this is how it is. Our mind is cluttered with too many thoughts and theories and discussions, and knowledge itself becomes overwhelming beyond a point. So what I've done in the last 5 years is invited our heart patients to delve deeper into their subconscious, recognizing that all that I know about myself, I am a Lingam, I'm a cardiologist, I work in Missouri, all this is in the top 10%. All this is part of my knowledge about myself. But at the subconscious level is where 90% of my potential resides. Same for everybody. But there is a barrier that keeps us from easily accessing our complete potential. We have direct access to our willpower, logical mind, and thinking. But at the subconscious level is where our emotions, values, and habits reside. For instance, if I want to give up smoking, I have to delve a little deeper rather than trying to logically give it up. It's not that easy. But then at the subconscious level also resides my creativity and ability to perceive gratitude and life itself at a deeper level. So how do we break through this barrier? So this simple mnemonic is at the core of the subconscious. So I've used heart, H for being humble, empathetic, A for aspiration, R for giving others the benefit of doubt no matter what, reciprocation. With these four things, we are able to build trust, not only in our colleagues, not only in our family, but most importantly, in ourselves also. This trust is what will allow us to meaningfully move forward in life. So if we operate every day through these simple thought patterns, I sincerely believe we can more and more naturally access our complete conscious and subconscious potentials. So this is a simple framework for how heartful living works. Everything that we, for instance, eat will be in the blue circle outside. Every day, self-inquiry means asking what I can eat, how I can eat that is a little healthier than my usual. And this every day we need to ask, every day that we are alive throughout our lives. And then every day we are finding happiness at the core through eating a little better than before, a little healthier. So this is what is self-inquiry. And this is what I've taken to cardiac patients to in their 60s, 70s, 80s, veterans with disabilities, and shown them as a way of working with themselves to gain more confidence. So at the body level, I request them to connect with hunger and gratitude together, mindful eating habits, and teach them natural ketosis. At the mind level, I remind them 80% of their health is always in their hands. We teach flow through sports and exercise, and we talk about ikigai. And for self-inquiry specifically, we teach meditation and altruism and compassion. Veteran who is 80 years old with only one leg and who has nobody at home, how can he find ikigai and meaning in life? That is through volunteering. They can come to our own VA and spend few hours every week volunteering their time to support some other activity. And that's how they find that strength and meaning in life. So this is how this whole thing works. And the 0% effort is our promise. We say, if you do self-inquiry, if you connect with your subconscious, this entire program and this entire life itself becomes effortless. So that is what is heartful living at its core. So I'll take you to my personal journey. This is a friend of mine that I met in the summer of 2018. He is a chef by profession who gave up being a chef and became a tour guide in Slovenia. He has no savings at the age of 28. He had just lost his 4-month-old son when I met him as a tour guide. And he took my wife, my daughter, and myself 1 hour on this path. And then he told us that this tip is where we are still having to reach. I thought he was joking, but he really got us up there. But his real story is he's taken a big pay cut to become an outdoor tour guide from being a well-trained chef in a 5-star restaurant. He leads a very introspective life, and he feels and he actually lives on only 1 or 2 meals a day. For us, this was a lifetime adventure climbing up to this mountain peak. For him, on a day off, he would do 5 of these mountain peaks and still eat only 1 or 2 meals. So when this encounter happened, it made me wonder, being a doctor, why did I spend all my life having 3 regular meals every day of my life so far? So he did not ask me to stop eating, but it made me wonder. And then I took up intermittent fasting. So once in 5 days, I don't have any food at all. So the benefits of intermittent fasting are it improves our immunity, reduces our risk for diabetes, helps us lose weight, helps our heart, and reduces cancer 70%. Heart disease maybe 80%. But more than all these things, it may reduce our risk for dementia by 70-80%. So if you look at the hunger scale, we want to stay between 4 and 7. Don't overeat and don't get too hungry is what they teach. But that is for people who are normal weight. What about people who are trying to lose weight? My cardiac patients who are 70 years old have a BMI of 35 or 45. How do I get them to better health before their heart gets too stiff and stops? Because you don't even need a heart attack for the heart to stop. Above the age of 60, obese patients are at extremely high risk for diastolic heart failure. So how do we take heartful living beyond for people who have BMI which is unhealthy and not compatible with life? So we ask them to go to 3, 2, 1. And what will happen? Will they stop? Will they faint? Typically, we will seek fast food, but we teach our people not to do that. None of these things that you see in this picture is healthy for you. That's the reason I put up this slide. So we teach patients to relax, to smile, and to drink water, plenty of water. And that turns them into natural ketosis. Instead of needing fuel from outside, they're able to burn their own fat as fuel. And after a month or two, they get comfortable with this. So emotional eating, I'm sure you deal with it. I don't need to explain to our group. I have had habitual eating for 45 years of my life. By the clock, I would eat, and that would give me the convenience to pursue my education and take care of my patients and do whatever work I want to do. So food would be a necessary thing in my life. That is all. But now in the last 2 years, I've recognized more and more there is much value to eating when we are truly physically hungry. So this allows us to really feel grateful for food in a much more natural and experiential level. So this is what Heartful Living Now requires you to enroll in. High Life Journey, if you log in yourself, in 5 minutes, you can answer all the simple questions about mindfulness and optimism and depression and all these basic things. And for doctors, what we have is the Maslow scale we have included there. But basically, if you complete it, then you will be able to see all these 6 lectures, which are all available. And 4 things that we emphasize. The first thing is fasting for 14 hours overnight. Say from 7 p.m. after dinner, if you brush your teeth until 9 a.m., don't have any calories at all. But the key thing here is to connect with the gratitude and finding it in our life, in our day-to-day living. Then we teach hunger gratitude experience. What this is not only intermittent fasting's benefit, but also I believe people are able to cope or even overcome depression, anxiety, and increases their compliance with smoking cessation or anything else that they set themselves towards. Giving up alcohol, giving up recreational drugs, even coping with chronic pain syndromes. All these things get so much more easier if people connect with this hunger and gratitude experience. And most importantly, I feel they are able to connect with people in their own circle, family, friends, and themselves at a deeper level and find that much more meaning in their lives. The next thing is connecting with exercise, 30 minutes of exercise, even if they are disabled, even if they have heart failure, heart coronary events and bypass surgery. We ask them to exercise 30 minutes, gradually building it up from 2 minutes, 5 minutes, all the way to 30 minutes. And the most important aspect here is being aware of the exercise and finding the ability to smile. So exercising, physically challenging the body at a good level while simultaneously relaxing at the same time. So this is the real inner journey aspect of exercise that we teach. Self-talk is from the sports psychology, where we teach patients for 1 minute to 2 minutes, they talk aloud in their own room without anybody listening. And they're just observing their own thoughts and then sitting down for 5 to 10 minutes quietly. They don't need particular meditative tools, but after that, they can practice mantra chanting or just focusing on their breath or a single pointed meditation or gratitude, whatever they feel like for 5 to 10 minutes. So altogether, it's only 10 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes of silent self-talk, and then 7 or 8 minutes of being silent. This last thing is the most, I would say, COVID-specific program, which is the ACE, Altruism, Compassion, Experience. 70, we call it, for 70 days of doing this. We've applied for $1 million NIH grant with the help of our psychology school at our university. Based on this high life concept. What it is out of our routine day, whatever our average day is, we take 1 up to maximum 5 minutes to do something that will bring a smile to somebody, preferably that somebody should not know who did the act of kindness for them. So that allows us not even that gratitude from the other person who received our kindness gesture. So we are only left with the self-compassion and more confidence. So that's the challenge in this COVID world, how we can make someone else smile without them knowing who did this act of kindness for them. So I've given this challenge to 80-year-old patients and a 10-year-old, my daughter, and she's her own way of doing it. So I'd request again, remind people to mute themselves. Thank you. So this is the result of this program. In 2019, the 73-year-old started this Heartful Living and ended up losing 45 pounds within 3 months. But for that, he required to not eat 2 of his routine meals and then 0 of all his snacks, and ended up eating only 1 meal a day. Every night he would go to bed hungry and continues to stay hungry. But the important thing is he is still alive. He is morbidly obese. At that age of 73, that much weight in a person is not compatible with healthy living. He came in and required 2 weeks of hospitalization for heart failure. He was on 8 medicines, and now he's on only 3 medicines and doing so much better. He also had a very little interest in life itself at 73, but now he's looking forward to his 90th or even 100th birthday. So that much transformation this program has done for him. And this same story I've gotten so many different patients. So I'm just showing you another patient here who's a truck driver who found that this program really helped him quit cigarettes. And now he has lost 25 pounds, but instead of 58, he feels like he's only 40 years old. He's off 5 of the 7 medicines, despite being still a cardiac patient with stents in his heart. This is another patient who's the author of 4 books, who has left main disease, not LAD or circumflex. This is the widowmaker, a lesion in the left main artery, and required all these medicines in 2020 January. By July, she has lost quite a bit of weight. And the important thing is, she feels like she's only 25. She's taken herself off every medicine. And when I see her most recently last week, she says, I don't want to go on any of these medicines. You teach me the next level of heartful living. So people are able to take this up and trust themselves, not our program. And they don't need the medicines, not like they just ignore medicines. It's they are overcoming their requirement for medicine. They're overcoming chronic problems like diabetes, hypertension, even left main coronary artery disease, to the point that that's not causing them any more angina. This is a patient who's 69, and she has all these medical problems. We don't have the time to even verbalize these things, but you can quickly read through that, and I'm going to play what she's saying. This is what I told her when she participated in our program last year. Health is the freedom to pursue life passionately. And she took it to her heart. And when I called her a couple of months ago in this COVID world, she didn't come to my office. On the phone, she said this, and I recorded it for you. What do you feel grateful about?
That I wake up every morning.
Excellent. You started out saying that you're an optimistic person.
I've always been optimistic and always figured I had at least the glass half full.
Now, how do you look at your life?
That my glass is always full and overflowing.
So that level of confidence she has gained despite continuing to be a patient with several organ failures. And she is with vertebral fracture, and last 20 days she hasn't got out of the bed when she gave that recording for us a few weeks ago. So this is the power of the self-inquiry or subconscious or whatever word we use. There is infinite potential for freedom to be experienced by all of us and our patients through self-inquiry. And that is where this 20% that is in our hands can be optimally used. This is a classmate of mine. I've invited her to this talk today. She is still in India. This is her. She is a doctor in 2016, stressed at work, widowed at 42 because her husband had a coronary event at sleep. She woke up and found that he is not going to wake up that day. Both her kids are teenagers, and she herself is a sedentary person. Fast forward to 2019, she continues to work efficiently as a professor in microbiology. She remains single but feels fulfilled in life, and her kids are very well accomplished. And now she herself has taken up running, swimming, and biking, to the point she is now competing as a triathlete and sharing on our medical friends group her trophies. So her story is this: last year she took a trip to Thailand for a week to bike 1,000 kilometers. And she said this is the first trip in her whole life that she has taken for herself. So this much energy comes from taking care of her family, her job, but also connecting completely with a hobby. My request as a cardiologist is I'm hoping that you find your hobby to be physically involving also. So this is a patient of mine, a professor here at the university. At 69, walking in Walmart, shopping, doing chores, he would get short of breath. He ended up with a heart attack, needed a stent, and then completed a Heartful Living program, completed cardiac rehab, and then went on to start training enough to win 5K runs. And this is the medal he shares so that others can be inspired when they participate in our program. So for want of time, I'm going to skip through some of this, but he is now in this year started fasting and feeling much younger, like 25 years younger. This is another patient who is a 50-year-old engineer who ended up with an anterior myocardial infarction and a cardiac arrest that needed stenting. After participating in our Heartful Living program, this is his dyspnea index. It can go only up to 10. At that point, we are short of breath and we have to stop. This is the heart rate on a treadmill that is moving at 5 kilometers, 3.7 miles on a steady pace. Most often, anybody would stop when they reach their peak. He's a heart patient with a stent. But 1 in 5 episodes, he would be able to continue the exercise for several more minutes with the dyspnea dropping off. And this is, I believe, because of a phenomenon called flow. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi described this in 1975 as optimal engagement with a task, free from self-consciousness, intrinsically enjoyable, and can last for minutes to hours. When, let's say, for instance, a tennis player meets equally challenging opposition, they can enter this flow. But if I was to play tennis with somebody who does not know tennis, I would be bored. And if I was to play with, say, a professional player, I would be too anxious to not look like a fool on the tennis court, so I'll be too anxious. But if I find somebody who is equivalent skill like me, I have an opportunity to enter flow. But this requires several years of training to experience this flow. But now we realize this can be experienced in routine chores while doing dishes without any opposition or difficulty through several ways. So we've been running too hard towards life, not realizing the meaning in the moment. So this is what we invite through Heartful Living, and this is available for everybody anywhere. To sign up to highlifejourney.org to see where we are, where our patients are, our children are in their own journey. Above the age of 10, we invite anybody to participate and answer within a minute where you are in those 4 aspects we discussed. And through that, you will be able to find confidence. Over 3 months, we can reassess ourselves in all these parameters and see how much improvement has happened for ourselves in our own self-inquiry. So High Life involves cardiology, positive psychology, mindfulness meditation, 5,000-year-old Siddha and yoga techniques. And that's what we have brought through all these programs. But in summary, it is gratitude, fasting, exercise, connecting with life itself. And I wanted to share with you very briefly some of our cardiology fellows, how they are doing. Religious fasting, this is a fellow of ours who's from Ethiopia. For most of the year, from the age of 7 years, she's been eating from say 3 p.m. until 9 p.m. and mostly vegan food. And she feels that it significantly improves her energy. This is intermittent fasting taken up by another cardiology fellow 6 months ago. And he says, this makes me more self-aware of what I'm eating and more thankful for being able to have food. So this, despite us growing in abundance and becoming doctors, whatever profession we have, we can still reconnect with food at a more, I would say, holistic and deeper, meaningful way when we take this up. I talked about exercise. This is another cardiology fellow who takes up high intensity interval training. And she says, my experience with HIIT using Orange Theory was one of the best. The goal is to get to 80% of maximum predicted heart rate with a combination, with a fast recovery to your baseline heart rate. Endurance has significantly improved with this type of training. This is another cardiology fellow, and he says, I've experimented with both 20:4 hours of fasting and 16:8 hours of fasting, and found that the fasting hours during the fasting hours, my attention span, alertness, and caffeine intake were substantially improved. To develop this type of deep mind-body connection, they say it takes 10,000 hours. Through meditation, our cardiology colleague and very good friend of mine, Dr. Senthil, which he has done this now for 15 years through Sahajmar, and he invites any friend in our town to come and practice meditation with him and his group at home with him. He does it 30 to 60 minutes on everyday basis, despite his busy schedule and having young children at home. And the reason he does this is because it gives him such a calming effect, and in his own words, gives you a sense that everything is going to be okay and all is well. It improves his focus towards his work. He loves chess and tennis and anything else he wants to accomplish every day. This is another classmate of mine, Dr. Leslie, who has unfortunately found that he has stage 4 colon cancer, and he has completed chemotherapy, which is only palliative for that type of problem that he has. Despite all this, in the last few months, he is now back to working full time, taking care of his diabetic patients. And the reason for that is the strength of his ikigai. Ikigai is a reason for being alive, or meaning in life itself. It's a Japanese term which says if you're good at something and you love it and the world needs it and you get paid for it, if all these 4 things are met, then there is infinite potential to find meaning. And being doctors, we are blessed to have ikigai through our work itself. We don't need to go seeking this anywhere outside in the form of service. And that is what I believe is going to help my friend get over whatever health issues he is facing. So this is a program here at MU for heart patients, and now we have it open for MU staff and faculty also, where we can go and train. And I go and train there myself. So this is what I take a picture with one of the coaches there, so that my son will believe that I spent 1 hour and I'm still smiling at the end of that. And this is another day. Every time it is so much of hard work. And now in the COVID world, I've not been going there regularly, but I still can continue playing tennis. But what I remind people is participate in activities where you can truly lose track of time. So those things are the things that you have the chance to enter flow and connect more meaningfully with life itself. This, I don't have to tell psychiatrists what Maslow's hierarchy of needs are, but I want to remind you that beyond all these needs, if we can connect with gratitude for the events in our lives, for people and circumstances, and preferably with life itself, then there is infinite potential for us to not only move through this hierarchy to reach the highest potential of transcendence through self-inquiry. And for that, I believe we have done this over the last 5 to 10 years for hundreds of our heart patients and so many of our cardiology colleagues, fellows, and medicine teams, that I believe all these things are possible through our self-inquiry. So this is a picture last Christmas with my colleague and fellow doing my job, which is taking care of patients and reading echoes. So what is special about this picture? This is my day off. Our travel plans were canceled because my son couldn't go. So I was at home the day after Christmas and decided to just go into work. So I'm inviting you to try to spend a few minutes at your own workspace. And you will find that it is so beautiful and meaningful when you don't think you're obligated and you're doing it out as an extra, I would say, on your day off, if you can find the energy to do some of the real work that we are doing. So this is another diagram showing how flow might work. Most of our life we are here. In 1970s, when this came around, watching television was the worst thing you could do, leading to boredom and apathy. But now we have something in the negative, which is social media. But again and again, if we can move towards things that give us meaning and engagement, preferably our body should be involved also, then I believe our health, we can obtain the highest potential with that. So in this flow concept, most of us end up eating habitually. I did that for 45 years of my life. Now I'm waiting till I'm truly hungry for every meal. I don't eat unless I'm hungry. So that is what I'm inviting all of us to do. So this is a picture from a new slide that talks about this 30-year-old concept of flow among doctors, how to accomplish in our life despite emotional exhaustion and sense of personal accomplishment can be achieved through finding flow at work. But my request to you is very simple. Connect with hunger, that will make you grateful. Connect with gratitude, that will allow you to stay hungry a little longer. So both of this will open up so much potential for more health, wellness, and energy throughout the rest of our lives. So these are two patients who are both 60 years old. The one on the left, unfortunately, has a heart that is 75 years old, whereas this 60-year-old has a heart that is only 45 years old. So how do these two people both have lived on this earth the same number of years? They've aged differently. I believe if we take that question to heart, we can change our age starting today. So this is a study we did from kids in the 1990s and looked at their negative emotions and showed that their 30-year risk for heart disease increases dramatically if they answered one question pessimistically when they were a teenager. 30 years later, their risk for heart disease is so much more. So this is the odds ratio and what we were able to show. So to summarize, connect with your gratitude. you will find it is easier to stay hungry, and that is what will allow you to naturally enter into flow. You don't need to learn tennis or learn to write your own music or learn any exotic bungee jumping. You can find flow in your day-to-day life. So connect with physical hobbies, embrace life passionately, find flow again and again through physical activities. You don't even have to worry about that. If you find a sport, connect with gratitude, and you will find resilience to stay young throughout life. So if you give me another 1 hour, I will be happy to talk to you some more about my thoughts on how human consciousness is going to interact when super AI arrives. Artificial intelligence, they say, is going to supersede us within the next 20 years. So what are we going to do? What is going to be the meaning for our life itself in our own lifetime that we can talk about? And then my research, which is Takasubo, stress cardiomyopathy, and how psychology and psychiatry can help heart patients thrive despite these problems, to avoid them and to limit the risk of recurrence of Takasubo. These things I'm happy to discuss when Mona finds another opening for us to meet. I want to thank my collaborators in positive psychology, in exercise physiology, and engineering, who so many people who have helped me in these last 10 years with this project, and all these efforts would not have been possible without their support. I'll stop here. I have numerous more patients I can share with you, but I want to leave some time for question answers. Thanks so much again for your patient audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chokalingam. We invited you to connect us with the with what's going on in MU cardiology world, but what we've got is so much more than that. And I think you probably have covered 4 or 5 different topics that probably require full hours. So physician burnout, and the high life journey part, and the intermittent fasting, and flow and gratitude. We're so thankful for this really rich material. I'm going to, and there are tons of questions coming up from the audience about the specific material content of your talk. In looking at the time, I'm going to circle ourselves back to PSL's mission, and we'll try to get your input, Dr. Chokalingam, about how PSL in its current format can help people in your network or your circle. So I'm going to open this for questions, but the first question I want to invite from our own admin and chief organizer, Dr. Masood, and then people can chime in with more questions after that.
Thank you again, Dr. Chokalingam, for this excellent presentation. I am lucky to have presented with you in the past, but every time I feel like I come away with another wonderful takeaway. As Smita said, it was very enriching. I want to start off the Q&A with kind of a general question. It's something that we are hoping that you can help us at PSL understand better, so we can support better, and that also just the general, this general mission of ours of normalizing and normalizing and advocating for physician mental health amongst all of our colleagues, something that I know you are very passionate about as well. We wanted to know from your perspective as a cardiologist, obviously you see the connection between, physical wellness and mental wellness. And I'm sure that if you see it for your patients, you mentioned at the beginning, you see it definitely for the physicians. How can we better support our cardiologist colleagues, and not just we, but as psychiatrists, but in general, what are the kind of the mental health concerns that are evident for cardiologists that would be helpful for us to understand better about? You mentioned moral injury and also the systemic mental health burden. Could you elaborate a bit more?
Once again, thanks so much for inviting me today. I thoroughly enjoyed presenting, and I would definitely love to hear some feedback about some of the slides I showed, because I'm talking about consciousness, subconsciousness, and I feel I'm talking to experts in that area. So I'd love to hear from you on that. But as far as your question is concerned, cardiology is a very wide field. In the sense, for instance, I'm non-interventional. So my work is taking care of acute heart patients, but not with the interventions and electrophysiology aspects. So we do some cardiologists who are more procedural, and some are more electrical, and some general. So there's a lot of variety within cardiology. And right now, what we are facing, I would say in 2020, is as a group, there is so much more extra uh, COVID-related stresses, because me, for instance, I have to do transesophageal echocardiograms, which is upper endoscopy and looking at the heart from inside. That is a highly aerosolizing procedure. We still have a lot of challenges getting sufficient COVID screening tests done on our patients. So without knowing their COVID status, we may be putting ourselves at risk for exposure, and not only ourselves, but also the other providers and the next patient that we have to do these procedures on. So we have responsibility to so many more people, and not only our patients. So all these things weigh on our minds. Our societies are trying to come up with guidelines every few years usually, but now in the COVID world, every few months they are writing position statements, but still it is not fast enough to keep up with the changing COVID world. So what you are doing in physician support line, I think it's a boon or a blessing for not only cardiologists, but for all physicians in the front lines. Because, see, I showed you pictures of so many of the inspired the cardiology faculty and fellows who are willing to give their names and pictures and say, yes, I'm doing self-inquiry through my methods, and I want you to share the story to inspire other doctors. But there are so many others who have so much self-doubt, and everybody, including the pictures that you saw of the doctors there, and including myself, we face so much stress. So when we don't want our name to be known anonymously, we can just pick up the phone and reach out to a specialist who is there with concern and compassion. That means a lot to us. You being there, I believe, is helping me do my job better. So I'm going to spread that word not only within our MU community, but wherever I present about physician wellness in our American College of Cardiology, American Medical Association, ACP, wherever I present my experience with self-inquiry, I'll be showing a few slides about the amazing work that your group is doing. And I thank you on the behalf of all physicians facing COVID challenges for the true service that you're doing.
Oh, Dr. Chakalingam, we are, all of us I know are incredibly humbled by that, that praise. I do hope, and I think all of our hope in all of this is we come out of this with a lot of collective empathy amongst physicians, and not such a discrete identity that this is a cardiologist, this is a psychiatrist, this is this person, but we start seeing kind of the human behind the specialty, in order to kind of come together, not only as individuals, like what we provide directly, which is individual support, but also we're hoping in the systemic changes of what that a collective empathy can bring in terms of, mental health and its acceptability of vulnerability within our colleagues. So thank you for that, and thank you for spreading and advocating for our work. Smita, I will hand it over back to you in order to kind of field the questions we got from our participants.
Sounds good. Thank you. I have a follow-up question to that, Dr. Chakalingam, and then I'll go to the participants' questions. You're already doing you already answered some of what I was going to ask you about. Apart from the advocacy that you are planning to do for Physician Support Line, are there other ways we could reach our cardiologist colleagues?
Yeah, if you would like to present some of your ongoing work in the COVID world, I'm so happy to set it up for you to come and talk to us. Not only our cardiology group, if you would like to talk to our entire medical faculty, we can arrange that in the next few weeks so that people will become more aware. Because Mona and me presented medicine grand rounds to our university staff. But if you want to take up a specific couple of questions and bring it from physician support line, one or two of you together, we'll be so happy to hear how you're navigating this COVID world and your service. So it's making more awareness, I believe, is the first step at this point.
Sounds good. Thank you. So I invite our participant psychiatrists to ask questions. They can put it on the chat.
I have in the same discussion, like I said, I will invite you to our university. I'd also like to see what you can do with us in the American College of Cardiology. That is, I would say, the umbrella organization for all cardiology postgraduates and faculty and the staff. That probably involves about 40,000 cardiologists. I don't even know how many cardiologists are in there. Throughout the world, there are many members. But would you have some opportunity to work with the college formally to bring some program through the College of Cardiology? Would there be?
Yeah, that is something we can discuss with our admin team, and definitely. We'll have to, Anand will have to probably sit down and think about what format it will take.
Like a 3-series lecture or something, if we can open it up through the college, then maybe even 1,000 people can listen to it directly live. And then if it's available online, then more people can listen to it and on their own time, and then contact physician support line if they need personal one-on-one attention. Something like that we can structure.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And we have like the 30 people on call right now. At least 10 of those are like ready to do speaking engagements. And then there are the other 600 who are not on the call. And so we can definitely find speakers. We can find speakers in local areas if you want to do chapter wise. So that's wonderful to hear. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anand.
We'll work on that together.
Okay, now moving on to questions asked by our participants. So let's go. One question about the diet when on intermittent fasting. Is the diet specific, or can people eat whatever they like?
There are two aspects of this. If you are doing intermittent fasting with the normal BMI, your BMI is below 23. Your body fat percentage for a male below 15%, for a woman below 25%. All these are probably going to be really athletic type people, bottom line. I'm not there yet. My body fat percentage. So, if you are already there, I would still recommend intermittent fasting, which is, can we request people to mute themselves so we can minimize interference? So when we try intermittent fasting, even for healthy body weight people, I would say the other 6 days they may have to compensate, but still it is beneficial for all these several reasons. And then if people are trying to lose weight, which is, I would say most of us want to lose a little bit of weight and get a little more fit, for them, they don't need to add extra calories. But on the other 6 days, they have to make sure they are not overeating. And then if the BMI is more than 30, 40, and they are heart patients and diabetics, they want to really lose a lot of weight, then the question of intermittent fasting combined with calorie restriction also comes in. So that's when I believe this, it becomes too complicated for 70, 80-year-old people with limited resources to do calorie counting and diary and this and that. So that's where I believe our hunger gratitude experience, the huge diet, comes in, where they just accept being hungry with water and smiling, and they connect with it over the first couple of months at a deeper level through meditation or just being grateful. They don't have to sit and meditate. And then they find that it is possible first, and then it is actually giving them more energy when they don't put more food in. At that point, we can actually take away all the restrictions on what meat to avoid, what sugars to avoid, because they are at that level of calorie restriction that they can really eat most of the things without too much restriction. But if you ask me, for most people, my recommendation is mostly plant-based, avoiding all processed meat, cutting down significantly on red meat. Maybe a little bit of chicken and fish is okay. Any oil is bad, but still I would say olive oil may be the healthiest if you sprinkle a little bit here and there. But mostly plant-based is what it ends up being for most of healthy people seeking longer health.
Thank you. And somebody asked, would you please make your slides available to us?
With pleasure. I think
Okay.
Mona is recording this, and she's going to make it available on YouTube, I think. And we'll post this entire thing, hopefully, on our High Life journey also. We want everything to be disseminated as best as possible to everyone. So whenever I call any of my friends or even patients, I tell them, you think about your next generation and the next generation. Bring your grandchildren if they are 11 or 12 years old. Let them also participate in these holistic concepts. So I'm so happy to share these slides. If you shoot me an email, my email is chokkalingam@missouri.edu. And our highlifejourney.org has all these slides, and all the information is most welcome to share with everybody.
Thank you. And I think this might be last question. If people have questions, please put it in the chat box and I'll say it aloud. Mona?
Yeah, no, I think somebody has their hand raised, no?
Type the question in the chat.
One question in the chat box is, if major contributors to burnout are lack of control or a sense of autonomy, overburden of EHR, how do physicians get back to autonomy?
So that's what I tried to show. We have to find this first for ourselves, that we are really doing meaningful work, whichever be our specialty. See, for physician support line is your way of finding meaning in life. That is your ikigai, because you're directly going and putting yourself out there to help any doctor in the country 24/7 and give them support. So that's not part of what your training was for. You just found this COVID world needs that service and you put yourself out there. Like that, I didn't get paid for Heartful Living. I still don't get paid for this High Life journey. I'm doing it with the help of a school day friend who is in India to develop that website and support it for the next few years. We are going to try and do it. And even after that, we are not trying to monetize this or anything. So that is my way of directly taking this message or the healthcare in whatever form and shape that I can to our community, to our patients. So I believe we are the key or core of healthcare, and we will always be. So all this extra noise that is happening around us, all the unnecessary EMR that we are unfortunately having to deal with is probably not going to go away very soon. But we have to find that, what I would say, a direct connection with our patients and with ourselves, despite the system. That is what I'm going to encourage all of us to do on an everyday basis. It's again and again, every day we have to find that meaning so that we find that strength to move through life and through these challenges.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chokkalingam. If somebody has a question and are not able to put it on the chat, if you want to unmute yourself now and just pace with other people chiming in and ask a question, that would be great.
Before anybody asks a question, I want to put this slide back up and ask psychiatrists whether this is got any meaning, or is it something I just got off the internet? Because I've used this framework for so many years. But this is my first, I would say, opportunity to talk to so many psychiatrists. So does it look very odd, or does it still look reasonable that there is some meaning in this type of thinking?
I'm waiting for our most experienced folks to respond.
I think first, thank you so much for incorporate the mind and the eating and the body together. And psychiatry sometimes a tendency to cut between the mind and the body. So I think of course it's relevant. Maybe what is at the bottom of the iceberg is more than classic psychiatry would have put in the past, right? It's not just subconscious and unconscious thoughts. I think it's so many part of our organism that's working in ways we don't understand. And
everything comes in there, yeah.
For instance, I was just asking, do we know physiologically how the fact that we have gratitude, that we're giving, and that, as you said today, and as we know, it's so good for our own health. And I'm not sure we know exactly how that works. So I would say that's part of this non-conscious path to our health, good or bad. Thank you so much again.
Thanks so much for that comment. Any other comments on this specific slide?
I put a note in the chat saying I was extremely grateful for you to point to the role of the unconscious in physical illness as well as mental illness. And I really appreciated your focus on small steps to get healthier. And then I asked if you could be my 91-year-old sedentary overweight mother's cardiologist, because she needs someone like you.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks so much.
I just have a question about what kind of fasting you tend to recommend to people.
If you see, most in the last 2 to 3 years, intermittent fasting has become much more of a popular thing, especially in the West Coast, East Coast. In India also, I'm hearing a lot of people are taking up intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, again, I personally fear is another diet fad. If you look at any diet, about 6 months, 1 year down the road, 90-95% people give it up and go back to what they are doing. So intermittent fasting also has that risk of falling by the wayside. So that is why in our self-inquiry program, we connect it with hunger gratitude experience. So if people can directly take ownership for the hunger itself and say, yes, I'm okay to being hungry, then you realize that it is actually, it takes a few weeks. First few weeks, it gave me a headache. It made the world feel a little unsteady. And when I just walk around my neighborhood, I would not even be sure if I can reach back home. But this is only for the first 4 to 6 weeks. After that, my body recognized again and again, this guy is smiling and staying relaxed. He's not getting food. That's what the subconscious realizes. By throwing out those symptoms, he's not feeding me. So once that the subconscious realizes, then it routinely starts connecting with that natural ketosis. So that, I believe, if we can genuinely connect with it, it becomes more like a prayer. Even if you're non-religious, don't need to practice meditation. I feel this heartful living I've done for now close to 10 years. But only in the last 2 years, I myself have fasted. So I've not taught fasting before the summer of 2018. So even before, we've had amazing results with patients. And that is because we teach so many other things. But fasting, I feel, is, I would say, the simplest and most effective way to connect with the subconscious. The easiest way to break through that logical barrier and go into the subconscious. Because there's no logical sense in depriving food when it's available to you right besides you. So that is where you overcome the logical mind and connect at a deeper level. But then when you ask about fasting, there are so many diets. They talk about DASH diet, Mediterranean diet, plant-based diet. Keto diet is so popular. As a cardiologist, I'm not for the keto diet because they emphasize so much oil and meat. These are not helping the heart. I'm not only looking at hemoglobin A1C or body weight. I'm looking at internal, like that last slide I showed you about the echocardiogram. I'm looking at that. your internal biological age, which I am seeing every day through my echocardiograms. So that is what I believe we can optimize through mostly a plant-based diet, but even more important than the plant-based diet, maybe giving the body food-free intervals and moving slowly towards our ideal body weight, which is waist circumference of about 35 for men and 31 for women. So if we keep moving towards that, I think we can optimize our health as an ongoing thing. I don't set goals for 3 months, 6 months. I said every time I see a patient, next 5 years, where are you going to be? 2025, will you be 30 pounds lesser? So then they are committed to a much longer habit change or lifestyle change rather than any specific diet change. I don't know if I answered your particular concern. I'm happy to answer it again if I went too tangential.
No, thank you. I do know people ask about this, the intermittent fasting, and it is sort of out there, as you said, sort of fad-like, and just one. So that's why I was asking what specifically. But it sounds like it's specific.
There are so many people doing so many different ways. So fast means no calories. So if you finish lunch at 1 o'clock, at 1:05 you're fasting theoretically. So fasting effect happens at about 10, 12 hours. So overnight, if we don't start in the middle of the night, we get a 10 to 12 hour fast routinely. But that we are pushing to 14 hours. For everybody above the age of 10 years, 14 hours seems to be very reasonable. After that, depending on goals, we can go to further. But beyond 14 hours, my personal recommendation is once a week, go all the way to 24. The 24-hour fasting has numerous benefits beyond the overnight 14-hour fast. The main things being coronary disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's. These are the three biggest things we can gain if we give the body no food 24 hours in a week.
Thank you very much.
Water alone and then smiling so that the ketosis happens comfortably.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chokalingam. I am going to bring this to an end. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the chat. If you want, I can speak aloud the comments that people have said here. So is that okay?
Sure, I didn't get a chance to look at the comments at all. I was just...
So yes. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, you have to come back for the next hour. So when you, at the end, when you said that you have 2 more presentations. And then Pamela McPherson said, we would love to hear about AI and human consciousness. I think that's a topic that's really so close to medicine and especially psychiatry, because we folks tend to like to wrap our brain around anything that's abstract, and this is a great topic.
Let's do that. My son is AI. He's working in AI. He's in Stanford right now, so he's working on how AI is going to look at us once it is super intelligent. They say by 15, 20 years, it will have everything that we have and more. At that point, will it look at us as a threat or like irrelevant to its own existence? We don't know. So at that point, what will be the meaning for us in this world, if we are still around? So that's what I want to talk about. And yeah, I'm glad to come back.
Well, thank you. We will definitely take you up on that opportunity. Then somebody else said, thank you very much. So Dr. Jean Keem said, thank you very much for a wonderful and informative presentation. I have to leave because I have another webinar to attend. Then a couple of people asked, Willie and Babin asked about your website. Let's see. And then Bernadette said, I imagine fasting is also a way to feel our body and be aware of it in a mindful way, a little bit like we can gain that knowledge through yoga or Pilates. Thank you. Lots of thank yous. Great presentation, wonderful presentation, terrific presentation. Please do come again. And then Marcia said, your smile lights up the screen. You are the embodiment of your teaching. So thank you so much, Dr. Chokalingam. I'm going to stop
I just put
recording.
my email address there, and once again the website, High Life Chat.
Yes.
Everybody.
So chokalingam@missouri.edu. If you guys do not get this in time, make sure to email me and I'll connect you with Dr. Chokalingam. I'm going to stop recording now, but feel free to, and stay on the line for 5 more